Good evening. We're going to start the meeting off a little different tonight because we're going to start with the oath of office of our new Board of Education members. So if I could ask Mrs. Larson and Mr. Sprague to go right up here to the front, and Mr. Milzer will present the oath of office.
Having been elected to the office of school board member, do you swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office to the best of your ability, so help you God?
I do.
Having been elected to the office of school board member, do you swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office to the best of your ability, so help you God? I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I'd like to call the Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, April 24th to order. And can we have a roll call, please? Dr. Miller.
Of course. Ms. Witkowski?
Here.
Mr. Gamble?
Here.
Mr. Nielsen?
Here.
Ms. Evans?
Here.
Mr. Sprague?
Here.
Mr. Lewis is excused. Ms. Larson?
Here.
Thank you. The meeting has been properly posted. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For item 4, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Witkowski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gamble. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. For item 5, we have the Friends of Franklin recognition. And if we could ask Mrs. Fassbender to come to the front, and Dr. Miller, if you would, I will also. I'm going to read a nomination that Ms. Fassbender sent in, and she said, for the past 3 years, volunteers from CSD, structural engineers, have volunteered to mentor 7th grade STEM students as they design their City for the Future City STEM competition. These engineers have come to Forest Park both during the school day and after school to work with teams on developing their cities. They have given students different strategies for a variety of problems, such as how to determine the scale of their city, how to incorporate industrial, residential, and commercial zones, examples of futuristic features such as transportation, etc. These engineers were able to help students develop their own ideas through a level of questioning that I am unable to provide. Because of this, the quality of the projects have improved. Students students even continue to reach out via email to these same mentors for their 8th grade projects. So, so we welcome these nominees for the Franklin Friends recognition. And Ms. Fassbender, would you like to say anything about our
Sure.
nominees?
Just as I wrote in the nomination, these engineers come all the way from Port Washington. And when we started this program, one of the requirements is to have a mentor, an engineer mentor, and I have no real resources to do that. So I would reach out to parents, and they would volunteer, but they were just on paper. They never really could come in. And through another connection, CSD came up, and they would come in during the school day and work with my students and after school, all the way from Port Washington. And this has been for the past 3 years. And they sit with the kids, they get right in there, they can ask them questions that I obviously can't ask them. And the projects, like I said, have been better. And even when they go to 8th grade, they've kept emails and they reach out again to these same people because they give them such good feedback. So it's really been a valuable thing for our students. So thank you.
Would you like to present the board?
Sure. Okay. Megan Hayes.
Thank you. So item 6 is election of the 2019-20 board officers. And I didn't write them down, but I'd just like to go over some rules from memory. The election of the officers will be done by voice vote if there's only one nominee. Nominees do not need a second. If there's more than one nominee, then we will go to a secret ballot vote, and the ballots are in front of you. The ballots are color-coded this year for each office, so the president is the pink one. If we have to go to ballot and you fill out the ballot, you just check one, and please fold your ballot, and Lisa will come around and collect the ballots. Because there are 6 of us tonight, there's more of a chance for a tie, and we follow Robert's Rules of Order. If there should be a tie, according to Robert's rules, we will keep voting until someone changes a vote, and we have a result. So, everyone understand the rules? Okay. Then, for president, I'm looking for a nomination for president. Do I have a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Janet Evans
Okay,
for president.
Nomination for Janet Evans. I accept the nomination, thank you. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Last call for nominations. Then I will close the nominations for president. So then we will have a voice vote. All those in favor of Janet Evans for president, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Janet Evans, myself will be president. Thank you very much. Then now we will have nominations for vice president. Do I hear a nomination for vice president? I nominate Tim Nielsen for vice president. Do you accept the nomination?
I do, thank you, yes.
Are there any other nominations for vice president? Any other nominations? Final call for nominations. With that, the nominations are closed. All those in favor of Tim Nielsen for vice president, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tim Nielsen is vice president. Congratulations. And then for item 6C, treasurer, do I hear any nominations for treasurer?
I'd like to nominate Linda Witkowski.
We have a nomination for Linda Witkowski for treasurer. Do you accept the
I accept.
nomination? Okay. Do I hear any other nominations for treasurer? Any other nominations? And with that, I'll close the nominations. All those in favor of Linda Witkowski for treasurer, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Then motion carries. Congratulations, you're treasurer. And then for clerk, do I hear a nomination for clerk?
I nominate Debbie Larson for clerk.
Do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And are there any other nominations for clerk? Any other nominations for clerk? And with that, I'll close the nominations for clerk. And all those in favor of Debbie Larson for clerk, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And Debbie Larson is now clerk. Congratulations. I made out a sheet just in case, so we'll pass it down. I don't know if you can figure it out, but I put every agenda item on there for tonight.
Put your bifocals.
Or you can do what you want.
I was bragging today how I don't have to wear cheater glasses. I guess I might.
You can make your own for tonight. Anyway. All right. Item 7 is community comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make a comment tonight? Anyone who would like to make a comment? Hearing none, then we will move on to the consent agenda. Would any board member like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, then I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Nielsen, and is there a second?
Second.
Well, I think Linda got it first, so we'll say second by Mrs. Witkowski. All those in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then we'll move on to item 9, school board announcements. Do we have any announcements? I would just like to announce that on May 7th, there is a spring workshop at the CISA 1 in Pewaukee. And if you haven't read about it, it's a 6:00 p.m. dinner, followed by a meeting 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. that discusses the legal roles and responsibilities of school boards. So if anyone's interested in that, we can let Lisa know about that. And that's all I had. Anyone else? All right. And then next, we'll move on to the school board calendar. We have a regular Board of Education meeting Wednesday, May 8th, 2019, here at the Education and Community Center at 6:00 p.m., and a regular Board of Education meeting Wednesday, May 22nd, here at the Education and Community Center at 6:00 p.m. Item 11, reports, presentations, and other school board business. 11A, the designation of the district depository. This is an action item. Mr. Milzer.
Yeah, each year the board reapproves the bank that the district uses, and we've been using BMO Harris Bank and are recommending that we continue with this bank.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve BMO Harris Bank as the designated district depository. Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Larson made the motion. Mrs. Witkowski, do you want the second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Witkowski. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 11B, the designation of the newspaper of record for the district. Mr. Milzer.
We would like to continue using the South Now, which is part of Journal Sentinel newspapers for the 2019-20 school year.
So with that, I'm looking for a motion to designate these, did you call it the Journal South Now? South
South
Now as our designated newspaper of record. Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Gamble. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sprague. Any discussion?
Are there other options?
Nope.
No. Okay. Just checking.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 11C is the appointment of the CISA 1 Annual Convention Delegate. I'm asking that I be nominated, although anyone else can be nominated if they like. I'm serving there as a 3-year officer, so I'm going anyway, but, so I'm looking for a nomination for me. If anyone else would like to be nominated, they can ask also.
I nominate Janet Evans to be our CISA 1 delegate.
No nomination for Janet Evans. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor of Janet Evans being the CISA 1 delegate for the annual convention, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 11D is the National School Board Convention reports. And Dr. Miller, Mrs. Witkowski, and myself attended the convention in Philadelphia. Who would like to go first?
Okay, I can go first. Okay, so I did fill out the form, which was, identify 3 sessions or highlights. So I think I'll just kind of go through those. First one was making sense, generating better board decisions. This was a session that actually is put on by Board Docs. And actually, the person that did this, the technology evangelist, her job title, is the same person that I saw at the state convention. So it's still of interest to me, though, talking about generative thinking and how we can make better decisions, and how high-performing boards, they find ways to serve as the organization's sense makers. So that's kind of one of our jobs as being a board member, is in addition to oversight, boards need to provide insight and, if possible, foresight. And maybe we don't focus on that enough. So that's all I'll say on that, and if we're looking for a retreat, speakers or something, I would maybe suggest checking in with them. The second one I'd like to highlight was called Understanding the Labor Market and Planning for the Future. This was a school in Ohio, and it was a company that provided some of the advanced career technical coursework that they have there. In fact, they have developed a advanced career curricula that's similar to the advanced placement courses, so it's kind of you can buy it or whatever, license. It's designed to, connect the career focus with a college-ready academic core. So they're already organized, they already have authentic projects that are part of the curriculum, and it ensures that, it's very high quality and engages students. It also talks about, one of the ideas that I learned there also is that, I know we have tech teachers, but you need to sometimes embed a math teacher with a tech teacher because you have to up the skills that are taught in some of these classes for them to really be successful. And they mentioned that tech classes shouldn't be a silo of courses. They should have the opportunity, they shouldn't have to choose between the two, but you create an opportunity for them to take, all kinds of courses. And one thing they mentioned was a trimester, a master schedule. I know we have that in our grade schools, correct? It's a tri-semester. And actually at the state convention, I did run into a school district where they do the same thing at the high school level, because it, again, allows kids to be exposed to more classes. I don't know if you've ever looked at that or considered that. But like I said, I was intrigued by the, it's AC, just like we have AP classes, they have AC classes for career classes. And then the last one was unlocking time. This was intriguing also because everything in school is time-bound. They show the big board. I've never seen the board, but apparently you must have one at the high school. It's got all the schedules. It's, they talked about that, and they showed a picture of it in one of the slides, and how, it's bell schedules, and it's all segmented into time. But in the real world, time is more fluid than ever. As we all know, we can do things anytime we want, and there's just different ways we can use time, and maybe we can talk about using it differently in our school setting. You can get into things like, is it seat time in terms of how you get credit, or is there other ways to look at how we give credit for learning? And actually this, some of the work that this entity did is actually funded by the Bill and Linda Gates Foundation, so they're also interested in how we use time at the high school level. And, talk about, creating more access and opportunity. They mentioned we should not sort students. We do a lot of sorting of students because of the time schedule. I'm sure it's part of it. But we should be supporting kids, not sorting them, but supporting them. So that was, they opened this with a video. It was a PBS video where they shadowed a student, or one of the principals shadowed a student during the school day. And you saw a lot of, sitting in class time, and this particular student was assigned to a lot of remedial courses because of his test scores. And when they talked to him, he said, I'd rather be taking more exciting, engaging topics, but I have to sit here and relearn math and reading, when really we could engage him in a different way and maybe pick up some of those skills a different way. So that was also an interesting session I went to. And one other thing, and I went to other sessions too. Security was a big topic, I think. you saw a lot of those kind of things. And one thing, the keynote speaker, well, the current president of NSBA, he's from California, but he shared that in the last election, he noticed that the school board was really not representative of the community that he was part of. As we're missing some people here. So he took the initiative to actually change their election from at-large to districts, so that they would, increase their representation. And as a result of that election, he lost his seat, but he was very pleased with the results of the diversity and the additional voices that they had on their board. I thought that was pretty compelling. And I'll pass along.
Thank you. Do you want to, I was going to first talk about our school tour, so maybe we can do that together. So Dr. Miller and I went to a tour in northern Delaware on our first day there of a school district called Colonial School District, which has just under 10,000 students in the whole district. And it has 1 high school, 3 middle schools, and 8 elementary schools. And the high school is just huge. Did they say it was 2 miles from one end to the other to walk the whole school? And they actually have a farm on the school property that the students manage it. They have a farm director.
With animals? Or?
They have goats, but it's mostly vegetables and produce and things. And the students actually, they do the accounting for the farm and things like that. The schools, all 12 out of the 14 schools get free lunch and breakfast provided at the school. It's a Title I school district, so there's no cost for that. So they focus on 4 pillars in their school district of early childhood, leadership, learning, and innovation. If you look down, and I put some picture collages in my presentation. So the collage 1 shows this WE. Everything in their district is promoting we, the power of we, and everyone is enthusiastic. The teachers, the whole staff, the administration, the parents, the whole city seems to be involved in we. And so we couldn't do that here because we're Wisconsin Electric, so we couldn't do we. That's all I was thinking about. But, I don't think I've ever seen anybody so excited. I don't know if it's because we were all there, but they were excited. They have a lot of involvement there. They have the schools are divided middle school and down between STEM and performing arts. So we visited middle schools, the middle school that had performing arts. And it was interesting. I mean, they make all their own costumes for their plays that they put on. When they do a play, they do it twice so that everyone gets to play a lead, everyone gets to, participate twice. They encourage everyone to be a leader, all students to be a leader in the district. And it was also in my picture, you see some middle school students speaking to us when we came, and they spoke really well. You also see some a picture of some steel drums. I was really impressed with those. They weren't really expensive. I think they said $200 to $300 per drum. And some of them they make. It's just something that everyone could do. The kids really enjoyed the steel drums. Although Dr. Miller checked into their scores, I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, or what you want to say about the whole district. It was interesting.
Yeah, so they struggle academically, but I think there's a lot of effort there to close achievement gaps and to deal with supporting the community as a whole. Within their high school, they had actually 2 employees whose full-time job was to gather resources for families, and students at the end of the day could come with a backpack and take paper goods home and things that they lack in their own homes. So they are working really hard to support the families in this community. At the elementary level, they actually partnered with an outside provider to put in a clinic. It's an actual medical clinic. The school district paid to remodel a classroom, it was somewhere around $400,000. It was a fair amount of money that they put into creating this clinic, but then the outside provider provides the services to the families and the children. So it's a really different environment where it's absolutely critical to reach beyond the school doors out into the community to support the families. So, but I agree with Ms. Evans, there was a lot of passion and enthusiasm, but there's certainly an uphill battle with their academics in that school district.
And in the high school, they also have different academies. They had a STEM college academy, a business college academy, humanities. They just offered all these different areas. It just seemed like too much. But they seem to be handling it, but it's just,
Big school.
yeah, it's big, so. Another area I wanted, I'm not going to highlight all my areas, but I'll just name what I went to, but my last day there, I went to a session called Equity and Outcomes, Evolving Our Schools to Meet the Opportunities and Challenges of Cultural Inclusivity. And the district was called, I can't even pronounce it, I want to say Shenandoah, but that's not how they pronounced it. Shenandoah is what they called it. And they said, we're not a place, that's just what we're called, and they were from New York. And what was interesting to me about this was they talked a lot about hiring, the hiring in a school district, that they believed you should have training in your hiring teams, because they said, we all have bias, and it's nothing personal, it's just personally within us, and that when you hire candidates, you should be trying to get the best candidate, which I think everyone believes they are trying to get the best candidate. But they talked about Vernee Myers, who does TED Talks, and she says, the stories we make up about people before we know who they are all happen when we walk through a room and people start judging us from head to toe without even knowing us. And then they said, if we believe every student, we should have every child's best interest in mind all the time, and we should ask, what do we value and what do we believe? And if we believe every student should be successful, we should do everything possible to make that a reality. And it was a really complicated session, believe me. But it's like, they said, if you're hiring someone or interviewing someone, you come in just with a personal bias, and you can't help it. It could be a positive bias or a negative bias, but you just have beliefs. Like, they gave an example that maybe you think that a female shouldn't have young children, that just might be a bias you have, that even if you have your own young children, you just might come in with that opinion, but then you might feel, oh, but hey, it's great, the male has young children, and it's just things that you shouldn't be looking at, and they just believed you should have training on that, but and that it influences the hiring in a negative way. There's a slideshow I have in there outside of my reports that is really interesting. It was interesting to listen to the little examples the superintendent gave. He was African American, the assistant superintendent was Caucasian, and he had a lot of examples of bias to give for himself, such as he and his assistant superintendent went to a meeting, and someone shook his hand and, hi, how you doing? But then they shook her hand and said to her, oh, I thought you had a really strong handshake. And it's like, why should the female have a weak handshake? Just all these little biases everybody has. But Yeah. So I'm just going to, I also want to say at our sessions, the music at the sessions was awesome. At the events, there was a mariachi group from Texas that was so professional. I could have listened to them all day. And let's see here. Oh, boys choir they were from Pennsylvania, weren't they? Or they were just so good. And then quickly, I'm going to go quick here, just to say, I did, and I think Mrs. Witkowski was at the same one too. We went to a session on, that had space needs concept, because we did the space needs concept drawings. We went to a session on how you can get partnerships and things like that. And the only thing I really took away from that section was that you should really get your foundation involved, because they can do the, pull in the donations easier than if you tried to go somewhere else, but that you should really get a large donor from outside to help you with promotions, and I think we kind of already know that, but they did a pretty good job on their, getting their field houses. And then I went to Can You Hear Me Now? Incorporating a stakeholder voice in your district's strategic process, and I attached a report from Nellie May, which is an extensive report, but it's also an interesting report to read. It's too much to go into here. Let's see. One that I really enjoyed going to in my third set of reports was about, I'm sorry, my second set of reports was about language, what students are using today, and young people, how they change your language and their language, and it was called, I have too many reports, as you might have noticed. I can't even keep up with them here. Here we go. Okay. Yeah. I think that was in 3, or is that 2? No, 3. Okay, I'll go back to 3. I did go into a session on crossing the lines when educators become predators, and I thought it was valuable because it's something that's affecting a lot of school districts around the country, and they just think it's something that should be brought out into the open and talked about in your school districts with your administrators and things like that. And I agree, I think it's something that should be talked about and you should have a plan for. And so the one I'm talking about is the changing language of adolescence under my second report. When we first got into that session, they played little audio clips from around the country, and you had to try to guess where the audio was from, and I couldn't guess anything. I mean, they played one from Chicago, and I thought it was from Texas. So that's how good, they say that often you can't hear your own language, where you're from. But what they were trying to tell us is that teens, they change their language. They change the language as the decades go on. It does affect us all, but the big worry right now is that no one is having social contact with each other anymore, so we have to worry more about that. But the thing that I talked to Mrs. Witkowski and Dr. Miller about the most was about losing the R's, the R-lessness and R-fullness. That I have a little section in here outside of my reports that you should read. It's about, they do it right now, they go to the stores in New York, and they do reports on how it affects the purchasing. They'll use the English talking, the sales clerks, they'll go without the R's to try to make you feel like you want to spend more money. And then they will use the R's if they think you're not going to spend money. So it's a social thing. And they also played clips from the old movies, like with Katharine Hepburn and Jimmy Stewart, to show Philadelphia Story. It actually showed the classes in that movie because she was R-less and he was with the Rs. And so they're still doing it today, and they did it on Say Yes to the Dress. They actually still do that in their store. If you ever see that show with the wedding dresses, they're still doing that in that store. So it's, they play with that to make money, so, okay. I have too much in there.
Yeah, that's okay. So I chose just a few things to share from a few sessions. So one of the sessions I went to is What's in a Brand? So a couple things I picked up there is branding is really about creating this shared identity. And when you have this shared identity, you improve engagement and you have better strategic alignment. So that's the importance of branding, as I got that out of this session. So one of the pieces, and you can read what I wrote, that I brought from there was this Board of School Directors, which is essentially school board meeting guide. And the idea here is engagement has a lot to do with shared understanding of purpose and priorities. So at their meetings at this particular school district, they have this flyer available to the public when they come to every meeting. And if you just take a minute to look at it, it puts out there immediately to whomever attends a public meeting what your mission statement is, what's the role of the school board president. If you have a student representative, what do they do? It has the names of all the individuals, contact information, who the district administrators are. And then on the back, there's actually some direction for the public around how they can comment, when they can comment, things of that nature. So I thought this was a really pretty good takeaway that perhaps we can talk about further if we'd like to include, because it allows us to create that kind of shared understanding about who we are and what we do. So I wanted to bring that for you this evening. So the branding session was important. One of the statements that kind of hit home with me was social media is like a campfire. You have knowledge, skill, and you have to pay attention to that matter. There's context and attention to matter. So I just thought that was an interesting analogy as well. Another session I went to related to equity. As you know, one of our core values is equity, and equity is important to everyone. And this conference was a great deal about equity. So I went to listen to a school district from California, a really large school district, 30,000 students in just K through 8. That's not even high school. And I listed in the notes here a number of components of their equity-based program. Obviously, they have values, mission, and vision. Their definition of equity is it means to meet every student where they're at. They have they call themselves a STEAM school, and if you're not familiar with that acronym, it includes art in science and technical education and math. And then they showed some very powerful videos. They literally went to their student population and had students answer this question on a video, or respond to this statement, "I wish my teacher knew." And a number of kids said things like, "I wish my teacher knew that my mom works at night and I have to babysit. I wish my teacher knew that I'm embarrassed because my pants aren't clean." You know, it was very, very compelling statement and a way of learning about the students in that school and what they needed to do to meet that student where they were at. That was very powerful. And then there's a number of other things in here that relate to pieces of their model. You need effective leaders, you need effective teachers. They do a lot of professional development with their teachers. Target support, a real focus on literacy is important. And then, of course, family engagement. So they were very proud of their work, and I really thought they had some very good ideas.
Check their test scores too.
I probably did, but I wasn't prepared to report out on other
Okay,
districts'
all right.
test scores tonight. But I was doing that quite a bit while I was out there. The last session was a really fun session. I love to learn about the law. It was the latest in school law, and it was school law A to Z. And the attorney actually went from A to Z with things that are occurring legally. And I highlighted just a few here, and again, I'm not going to go through all of them. FERPA, one of the ones that's most recent as of February 12th, 2019. There's been a new document pertaining to school safety that now identifies that school resource officers can have more information than in the past. Julie's probably somewhat aware of that as well. But it is something that's new in light of the issues we have with school violence. Number 3 was very interesting to me, the LGBTQ, and if you don't know what Q is, Q stands for questioning, if you're still questioning who you are. There's apparently in college, a lot of students are now pressing to have pronouns like per self, ver self, I don't know, her.
I wanted to share that I have a niece that, she goes to the University of, I think, Iowa.
Yeah.
And as a freshman, when she arrived on campus, that was one of the questions. What pronouns do you want to use? She went like, what? What pronouns? He, she, what do I want to be? I was like, college.
Yep. So the attorney said, just kind of watch for that coming to your high school, kids who might be wanting us to use different pronouns. Questioning website accessibility, OCR, probably about 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, we're really doing a lot of investigations around whether websites were accessible to all people with all kinds of disabilities. And then they've kind of backed off, and what this attorney has said is they're back, and they're looking at things more closely, and they're responding to complaints about this. I mentioned to you in one of my messages that we are working on the closed captioning right now of our board meetings, and then Christy's working on a scan, actually, and she just recently spoke to a vendor that can do that kind of scan for us and point out areas that we need to attend to for accessibility. So we're on top of that issue. I was happy to see that. And then the last one I thought that was really interesting was the vaccines, number 8. Parental choice exemptions have been eliminated in several states, California, for example. So they don't get to opt out of having their children vaccinated. So I thought that was fascinating. So those are just a few things, and you can read the rest. I have a lot of other notes if you have any interest in any of them. And then I also brought a couple of pictures to pass along. We had a little fun while we were there. You'll see Ms. Witkowski signing the Declaration of Independence, holding up Rocky's arm, and then a picture of a delicious Philadelphia cheesesteak sandwich. So it was marvelous. We went to Pat's one day after the sessions and sat outdoors at a windy picnic table, and while I was eating, it was spilling all over. These two were laughing at me, and it did not come out of my clothing, by the way. It didn't? No. So it was a very informative and good trip. And that would be all I have.
Thank you. All right. 11E is the treasurer's report. It's available in the board docs library. And 11F, the Forest Park construction and transition update. Dr. Miller and Mr. Milzer. Jim, if you want to begin.
Okay. The new building is really just receiving a few finishing touches at this point. The Forest Park Middle School sign has gone up on the gym as well as over the main entrance, which is different from last month. They poured the concrete pad for the bicycle parking. Student Commons is full of furniture boxes right now. It's a really large area, and it's probably 7 feet deep all the way across the entire thing. The landscape crew is back. They were in the islands planting plants and trees today in the parking area. And there's some ducting work that's going to be done in the tech ed areas. And then, of course, the next big thing is in June when the old Forest Park starts to come down. and that'll be another large project that you can see a difference on. Right now, you don't see much difference in the new building.
And in just a second, I'll defer to Mr. Reuter, who's going to share with you how we're preparing our staff for what's happening next year. He's done a lot of great work in that area. But just our last meeting, we spent some time talking about co-curriculars for our sixth grade students, and we're developing a plan around that. We're always talking about moving boxes and when they move, where they move, who paints, who packs, who doesn't. Technology, talking about technology. We, as you know, landed on a mascot now with the help of all of our students. Chrissy led that, and we have a mascot for the school. And then we're working on other questions like lunch line training and what exactly is the food going to be there now that we can cook some food in that facility. What's our arrival and dismissal process going to be? And then things like teachers are asking about building access. So we keep a running document, we meet regularly, but I'd like Mr. Reuter to talk with you just a little bit about that professional development piece, which is really very important to us.
Thanks, Dr. Miller. So as you think back to this past November, you approved new courses at Forest Park, specifically in the area of the electives and encore, as our sixth graders will have experiences they've never had. At the elementary level, they've historically only had physical education, art, and music, and now we add tech ed, family consumer science, business, more robust art courses. So we're working diligently with teachers since that day after that board approval of those new courses, and we have back mapped to September 3rd, the first day of school, projects around developing those courses in the curriculum. So myself, Mr. Cohen at times, Mrs. King, and Mr. Miziak are working with those encore teachers to develop those early stages of the curriculum with continued work ongoing this summer. And then in regards to the two-person house, we have teachers teaching content areas that they have not taught before, haven't taught in many years. So we started in the month of December with teachers, let's say for instance a social studies teacher becoming a literacy teacher, going in and observing their peers in literacy classrooms, better understanding, working with our instructional coaches, and building level administration to get a grasp and understanding of really it's good teaching, but what is the content I need to understand and learn. And from there, month to month, we've had a release time or after school time where we've worked with teachers to solidify the expectations of the curriculum, better understanding of that, and then we've been responsive to what their needs are. So after we've held let's say a 4-hour professional development time around consolidation of social studies units and what that'll look like next year in a two-person house with teacher input around that, but still aligning to best practices and the standards that you as a board have adopted, then we ask the teachers for feedback, and then we build the next month's plan. And so we've gotten now to the end of April, and that work will end because we have 26 days left with students at Forest Park as of today. Well, 25 now, as we're ending a week early. So we've outlined with the help of Mrs. King, Mr. Miziak, and our instructional coaches, we've outlined what that last week of school will look like, since the adults will still be here, and how we're going to then take the learning that's progressed throughout this winter and spring and then solidify the learning and the teaching that needs to take place with our staff over those 3.5 days. 1 day is a moving day for them, but 2.5 days of professional development. And one of the questions is, where are we going to do this? Because as you just heard Mr. Milzer say, we've spent a lot of time packing, and we're going to be moving, and we're going to take down Forest Park, but we're going to update the new Forest Park with all the stuff inside. So we've worked to solidify some spaces around the district and buildings, but also we're working, as you've heard Mrs. Fredericks come here multiple times to talk about our community partnerships. So we're going to have a group of teachers on site at Alice Roller and utilizing some of their spaces that I'll be facilitating in the areas of art, business, music, world language, physical education. Mrs. King and our instructional coach, Taylor Gold, will be working with the literacy and social studies teachers to do some continued learning and professional development. Mr. Cohn will be working with our tech ed teachers and family consumer science teachers at the high school. Mr. Miziak will be working with our math and science teachers at Starfire in the business park. So we're utilizing community space since we won't have a school to be working out of, but we have robust plans for over those 2.5 days. And as you're aware, in the compensation model, 16 hours of professional development is part of the expectations of teachers. So we've already taken some steps to solidify work that'll take place this summer. that teachers have identified areas that they want to grow and learn in based on their new teaching. But again, we'll be responsive at the end of the June dates to see what those summer dates look like. And then we'll be holding a math academy this summer that our new, not only our new, but our current math teachers will be a part of as we look at our programming moving forward. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work. You can physically see, you know, the building going up, but what's going to happen day to day, there's been a lot of effort from both the teaching staff and administration and our instructional coaches to build some cohesion around that. I can share you 1 million curriculum documents if you'd like to look through that, but the foundation is there, and we're refining teaching practice and understanding content better over the last 6 months.
So what kind of needs have they identified? Teachers, I mean, are there common threads or?
Yeah, so I think about, off the top of my head, you think about a social studies teacher who's moving to literacy. I have to understand the mentor texts that we utilize across the 7th grade level, and then how that applies to our instructional delivery model of a mini lesson, conferring with students, how I formatively assess in the classroom. You think about all the presentations we've seen over the last couple of years from the sites, and they've talked a lot about literacy. So those components that the kids are sharing, we're helping our teachers understand the structures and then providing them the content and understanding of the standards so they then know how to apply that with students.
I'd be more interested in the science-math crossover. What do you see there as far as how they need to get comfortable, or,
Yeah.
you know, what are their needs in those areas?
That's great. So our science teachers have really embraced teaching math as they see a lot of the connections. And many of the, you know, science has elements of math. When we started to crosswalk and look at units in science and math that science and math teachers never talked before, they're, what, you do that and I do that? This is going to be easy, right? So we can do this together. So Mr. Miziak's been foundational, and Mrs. Meyer, our math system specialist, of working with the math and science department. Mr. Miziak's background is in science and math, and he's done a great job of showing the connections, but also we've spent time with our science teachers who some have math background but haven't formally taught math in the past. We've had release time where we sat down and give them math content and like take in tests and work through it and better understand, okay, I need it. It's like getting on a bike. It's a refresher of, I've had these methods courses because I have a 1-9 license. I've done this work in the past, but I need to catch back up. So then from there, it's taking the actual units that we have in place and then walking through and saying, what does this look like in application? What does this look like day to day? When we work on the June dates at Starfire, Mr. Miziak is going to have our current science teachers like Mrs. Fossbender work with our oncoming science teachers who are math teachers to kind of walk them through some of the work and the unit development that's in place, because we'll be in the science curriculum for 1 more year. We're currently in the review process for science. And then math, we're onboarding new design. We're still staying with Carnegie and have the same math progression, but we have an updated version. So we're redesigning that, and that's why we're holding a summer academy for all math teachers, K-12 across the district, to say, here's what we've done, here's how we're going to do it better. So a lot of new learning, but a lot of shaking off the cobwebs of, yeah, I understand this. And then making those connections. I think it's been interesting with both math and science and literacy and social studies. They're seeing those connections that we've not seen before because we've worked siloed in a full-person house.
And are we keeping our parents informed, or, you know, are you making any kind of connection with parents to prepare them for?
Yeah, weekly communication go out from the bulletin that Christy and Mrs. King work together on about some of the work that's going on. We don't get into the complexity of, there's a 4-hour discussion around NGSS standards and the science and engineering practices, but there's training that's taking place with our teachers.
I guess circle back just for a minute, Jim, to the overall discussion on the school. We've had discussions at the board level and some of our pain points with the impact fees and things like that. Maybe for the benefit of Mike, to kind of get him up to speed a little bit on some of that background, and while we're looking at trying to get the city's attention to help us out in that regard, can you kind of have that discussion again a little bit so we can get up to speed on how things are going in that regard?
About the city having impact fees.
What are they, you know, does it make, from our side of the fence, does it make any sense? How does it work? And just for his benefit.
Sure. Originally, the city city and school district looked at creating impact fees at a time when the city was growing really rapidly, and there were a lot of subdivisions starting, and there were people moving into their homes that, because of the way property taxes work, some of them were going a year really of being in their house without paying any property taxes, and yet the school district and the city were providing services to them. And there were so many of them that it was really a crunch on the budgets at the time. And impact fees came up as a way to bridge that gap so that they were paying something for their lot when they bought it that would help to pay for the services they'd use in that interim period. And when they first came out, the city had impact fees, the school district had impact fees. And that went to the state, and the state decided that there was no impact on school districts from people moving into the community. I don't know how they decided that, but that's how they decided. But there was an impact on cities. So the city got to keep their impact fees, and the school district lost our impact fees. We never collected any. After that, the city kind of wrote their own rules on how this would happen, and the first time we ran into this was when we put up the new restrooms at the high school football field, and the city came to us and said, well, you're going to have to pay us an impact fee for that. And we asked, why would we have to do that? And they said, well, based on our calculations for a home, you're building all of these bathrooms, which would be like this, another big use of water and so forth, so you need to pay an impact fee. And they charged us an impact fee for that. They charged us an impact fee for the addition to the high school. I think that was in the $98,000 range. And they're wanting to charge us an impact fee for the middle school just for the difference from the old middle school to the new middle school in size and so forth, which is about $90,000. So we're going to the city with a letter of explanation of why we don't believe we should be charged impact fees by the city for the school facilities that we're providing, essentially.
And would it make sense that one of our central arguments is that, well, we're a taxing authority, and for us to get our money to pay these impact fees would be from the city residents?
Right.
So,
Right, and if you're going to try and chase that elusive piece of who caused the problem, is it the district that caused the problem because we built the school? Or is it the people that are the problem for moving in, or is it the city the problem for allowing people to move in and approving new lots? We don't have control over that. So it gets really muddy, and it really, when you go back to the original intent of the impact fee, it really doesn't make sense that the school district would pay that.
Especially since we don't have any new students, except for the 4K students, we just have a building. I mean,
Right.
yes, they're not, the sixth graders aren't at the elementary schools anymore, they're here, but it's the same amount of students.
Right. I just
Essentially,
don't think
the
we'd get any
sites-
money back on that one.
and we didn't have
Essentially,
any
the
luck
site's
with the
the
high
same.
school, right?
No.
That money got assessed and we had to pay it.
Right.
Plus,
So,
the impact fees go to parks and to parks.
Mhm.
But then we provide recreation to the city. So it's just wrong. It's just wrong.
so just keep us up to date on how that's going, and then certainly if anybody wants to contact their council members or the mayor or whoever to try and move this needle, that it doesn't make any sense to have us pay impact fees, I would encourage that. So, but I wanted you to kind of hear the story. Does that make sense? Does that kind of help some of the
Yeah,
background?
and Mr. Milzer and I did talk about impact fees and when I had a meeting with him earlier, but yeah,
Oh, I didn't know.
this helps more. That's great, no, I
Okay.
think it's a good refresher for anybody anyway.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you. Item 11G, the board retreat date. Dr. Miller and I were just discussing that we need to start thinking about setting that date or dates. And in the past, we did it with a doodle, and if everyone, I think I explained to Mr. Sprague what a doodle is. So we're planning on doing that again, but we wanted to talk about possibly having 2 retreat nights. One for a second one possibly for some board development, and the first one, Dr. Miller will talk about.
Right, right. So we want to try to help with increasing the board's connection to the coherence plan and the goals of the coherence plan and the work that you do. So the idea would be that the goals of the coherence plan really are the goals of the board. So then what are your goals? So we need an opportunity to kind of work through that as a board, but we may need to do some professional development on the front end of that to help go through the key work of school boards a little bit and draw some connections between what is it that your work is in relationship to our coherence plan. How can we draw a line between key work of school boards and the district's coherence plan? And then actually set those goals. So it might take a couple of evenings, not like 4-hour evenings, but, and then I suggest that we do some sort of icebreaker, something kind of get to know each other a little better activity as part of one of the evenings as well. So I'd like to get 2 dates. If we decide not to use 2, then that's fine, but if we have 2, then I think we can do the kind of development and goal setting that would be really meaningful for this board. So I would create the doodle, and it's pretty easy. Just go in and check the dates you can make, and we'll see where we land with that.
So we could do this like
Which months?
two separate months? You
Yeah.
know, it doesn't have to be.
Summer months? Or-
Yeah, you want to set your goals before the beginning of the school year,
Okay,
so,
so
yeah.
you're thinking,
I'll start mid-June and go all the way through August and see where we can get with finding 2 dates.
Does anyone know right now if they're off for a full week somewhere? Right now?
for me,
Well, for June, July, or
Away.
August? It-
Gone.
Gone,
Like, absolutely, don't even put that in the doodle.
because we'd like to have everyone at the retreat. So if you know you're away for an entire week, that would be helpful.
We have 1 meeting in June and 1 meeting in July as a board, so, you know, if we pull another meeting in, it's like a typical month for you in terms of
Yeah, we could
your
try
time.
the Wednesdays we normally would. So. Or another night of the week, too. So, you know,
I know at the end of July, like
Okay.
the 19th to the 26th or so.
Okay.
but otherwise, we'll put a lot of
Yep.
dates out there.
Put a bunch of
So, okay, thank you. Item 12, school board liaison reports, 12A, board liaison reports. Are there any of those?
I have a couple. I did attend the Education for Employment meeting at the high school, and they always offer food, so it's really good. I'll start with that. But we got a chance to review the plan for next year and comment on the goals that they'll be working on. Some of the things that are part of that, they're going to focus on alumni. That was interesting, trying to make some connections there. And I did see in my recreational flyer or book thing on the back cover, there's a
Yep,
survey.
yep.
I noticed that.
Ms. Bowden put that together for us.
So that's one of the things, working on that. Some more, trying to increase partnerships as part of that. Are you going to be sharing the plan, or is this plan available somewhere on the website that the board members were really interested? Because it's pretty detailed, it's got measurements and,
Is the actual employment plan in the library?
I don't think so.
It's on the district webpage, okay. Yeah.
so,
Under the instruction department, is that where you?
so we did that, and then we also discussed
Community.
some social emotional learning activities that are taking place in the district. Some of the new training the teachers are involved with, as far as how they begin their day, how they end the day. I remember some of that. And that also was good material. I would hope the board gets a chance to see that. I don't know how that happens.
Are you just mentioning SEL? Is
Yes.
that-
So,
Right, so
actually-
Mr. Cohn has a
Oh, coming back.
presentation plan for us in May.
Okay. So you'll pick up on that also. That was also part of something that was shared at that meeting. So So we had 3 meetings for the year, now is the last meeting for the year. And then, see what happens going forward.
Okay.
And then I also was part of the Education Foundation board meeting, was last week. They did have a successful consignment sale. They also talked about a very fun evening for the trivia night. I didn't attend either of those. I did help a little bit with the consignment sale ticket counting. It's amazing how they, it's kind of manual, but it works. And they also mentioned that they met with Dr. Miller, and there's going to be another shift in the focus for the foundation. And they're still kind of have to figure out how that's going to happen. So there's another meeting planned to see how that's going to work. And it's another round of change for them. Not sure about their executive director, what her plans are, and, but you have some committed members. So they did talk about, we did award some scholarships also. There's some good candidates we have for that. Nobody applied for the tech scholarship, but they're still going to work with teachers to see if we can have somebody apply for that yet. So that's what the foundation's doing. Any questions on that?
I just have a question about your meetings. Thank you for your report, but your meetings, are they all virtual now, or are they, do you meet in person too?
You have the option to phone in or attend. They're very flexible. I've done it both ways, so it works.
Thank you. Okay, and I have one liaison report. I just want to mention, I attended a Volition Franklin meeting on April 11th, and I want to mention it because they had an interesting speaker, Julia Sherman from the Wisconsin Alcohol Policy Project. She's been with that project for 43 years, which is a long time. And she's such a good speaker. She just had everyone's attention for almost 2 hours. She was 2 hours at Volition. And she really usually goes to aldermen, but she does, because they do the licensing for the cities. And Wisconsin is different because the localities do those licenses. But she does come to community groups like Volition. And she's really trying to help with alcohol misuse with youth. And I just wanted to point out, and we had our school social worker there too.
Randy?
High school,
Ronnie.
Ronnie, yeah, he's great. He really liked listening to her also. But she was talking about how now stores are selling Hello Kitty and emoji vodka containers. And it's just, they're just really still targeting youth. And all the signs are just getting lower and lower for beer. They're at toddler level, and it's just things that cities need to look out for. So it was nice that she was talking to Volition, and we had one alderman there, Alderman Barber, so I hope he brings some of that back to the full council to look into some of those things. But really good speaker if you ever need someone to talk about alcohol misuse in any of your
Was she with
groups. Wisconsin Alcohol Policy Forum. She is great, just great. And then she also, Officer Serwinski from police department said in February we had 15 OWI arrests in Franklin. That's high. That's high. So
They're also sponsoring 5K Volition,
oh yeah, the 5K run Volition is sponsoring. That's May
May 4th.
May 4th. If anyone wants to walk or run.
I'll put that in your message too.
Yeah. And then for our community engagement visits, did anyone have any they want to report on?
I have one.
Okay.
Actually got an invitation from Dana Gint from Country Dale about their science fair and book fair that was being held Friday, April 12th. And that's my liaison school. And so I was back in town on that late on that Thursday, but Friday I was available, and so I went over there, and when I got out of work, checked it out. I got to meet with Mike for a few minutes, briefly. We were both involved in other stuff, but I got to see him there. And I never thought about uploading these photos. I can get that maybe into the board docs. But the high school Saber Robotics was there. They were doing, they had a box with kind of an arm that went down and picked up a basketball, and they had some other kids that were checking it out. And I got a picture of some of the high schoolers helping some of the elementary kids. They have the controller, and they're kind of working through it. And Bart Adrian was there, the meteorologist, was doing his thing. So I got a chance to talk to him a little bit, and I got a picture of him behind the weather vane, talking to a second grader there. I got a picture of all the different tables that were there, and in talking with Mike, he says it was up from last year significantly. But I got to check out this one exhibit where this little kid was showing me the magic milk. And so they pour milk into like a pie plate, and then take a couple drops of food coloring. She says it works better if you use 2 different colors. And so I had to put a couple different drops in there. And then, it wasn't the magic milk. Yeah, it wasn't magic milk. And then you take the, just a drop of the dish soap, and you put it into the pie plate. And the molecules react, and everything scatters, and then all the colors swirl, and it was pretty cool. And so one guy came up and he asked, what kind of dish soap is that? And I said, well, it's magic dish soap. And she said, you can use any kind you want, that's fine. I go, you had them at Magic. So, but no, it was neat. And so, and then I was in the library for a while where they're doing the book fair, and they checking out the books, and what?
Buy a book?
I did not buy a book. Thanks for asking that question, though, Linda. Appreciate it. But I was busy helping people check out books, so that was good.
Books are being bought.
They were. So I thought it was nice that she reached out, and I'm glad I was available. So I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that evening because you were there, but
It was, the Country Dale's had this science fair for a number of years, and last year maybe there were 12 booths, and this year there were probably 25. My daughter did a escape room, and she had with 3 other kids, and they had a tent, and you had to answer science questions to get out of the tent. So it's a good opportunity for kids that age to work together and run around and learn more about science, and they certainly did, so that's a great event.
Maybe we can do the magic milk for a retreat.
I would do the escape.
he's going to teach it. Right? Now you know the secret, though, so
I still be kind of close to see.
it would be kind of cool to see. I'll see if I can bring it in.
I went to the Sabre Pride breakfast at Tuckaway on April 18th, and it was very nice. There were a lot of students being recognized, and also the choir was there, and they got to stay for breakfast too. And Stephanie Jewell, she put on the main event, but the entire high school does the event. All of the main staff and the guidance department, they do a nice job. And I just have to say that the staff that provides all the gift baskets for the kids for the raffle, it's just so nice that they do that. And the kids have a good time at that breakfast, and the parents are really proud of what the kids have accomplished. So that's a nice breakfast. And then I went with Mike to the new board members gathering, and that was in Muskego, and the District 11 President, Brett Hyde, he ran the event with, and Dan Rossmiller from WASB was there. And so I think all the new members from our area were there, and after we were finished, a Stone Bank new school board member that's near Arrowhead, they have 320 students in the district, approached me because Mike had mentioned about the orientation that he had received, and he had brought his key work of school boards with him, and So we were talking about orientation, and he asked what we do, and he wants to get a copy of our handbook and know how we do our orientation. So he was impressed with that because he said he just was told, be here and start. So he thinks it would be beneficial for his district. So also we were handed out a real lengthy list of things a school board member should know, and it's really grown from when I first became a school board member. It's just tons of things, so I think it might be beneficial to look through that and see if we should add that to our some things to our orientation. Not all of them, but some of them were interesting. So yeah, anyone else? Okay. And then, I can find my agenda. I'm a mess today. Okay, here we go. Item 11, school board meeting debriefing. Does anyone have any comments about the meeting? And Mike, this is the card behind your computer that I was talking about. That on the back, it has our, about equity, stewardship, well-being, and personal growth, our values, yeah. Okay. Then we'll move on to item 14, future agenda items. We have the tobacco poster winner presentation for May 8th, Ben Franklin Elementary presentation, May 8th, social emotional learning report, May 8th, and the 4K program update, May 8th. And then the Franklin Police Department and Franklin Fire Department recognition, May 22nd. That is not a Friends of Franklin.
Nope, it's just an opportunity to say thank you.
Okay, great.
So I'm working on the arrangements for it, it's not. in
I was wondering
place.
what the FPD and the,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like an opportunity to thank our police department and our fire department for the things that they've done for us this
Sure,
year.
that
Just have
sounds
them
great.
come in and say thank you.
The Franklin High School Engineering Report, May 22nd.
and can I ask what that is?
The engineering report, Franklin High School Engineering Report.
Let me look.
Is it the engineering students?
Oh, is that
or-
Mr. DeVelka?
Oh, that was something that potentially would happen, I'm not sure it will.
So question mark.
Right, it's a question mark.
What was
To
it, though?
to share about what's happening in the program at the high school, the
Oh,
engineering
okay,
program.
so it's a program report.
Right.
Okay,
to
I
have
thought maybe
Mr.
we're analyzing the building or
No,
something.
no, to share some of the great things that are happening, but I'm not certain it will happen.
I'd still rather if we could
Okay.
go there, because he had invited us.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right.
International trip approvals, May 22nd, and a 2019-20 staffing report, May 22nd, and the school improvement plan update, May 22nd.
And can you just say something about the staffing report? I expect that it'll probably be, we'll see the impact of opening a new building. If it's not clear, I hope we kind of focus on
Sure,
that.
sure. I'll make sure I speak to Ms. Ellihausen about that, but I'm certain she'll have that very clearly delineated in the report.
Okay.
All right. Then I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Nielsen, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Witkowski. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and we are adjourned at 7:18.